Hey everyone, I'm excited to welcome Elyse Fox and Nguyen. I'm a huge admirer of both your work, and I know our audience tuning in to Reconvene today is really excited to learn from you. So we're going to learn about how both of you communicate your unique brand through creative, through merch, through media, through collaborations, and more. Elyse, you're joining us from New York. First off, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about the mission of Sad Girls Club. Why is that work so important?
Yes, so hi everyone. I'm Elyse Fox, New York native, very much a creative, and I founded Sad Girls Club, which is a nonprofit 501c3 committed to showing up for the BIPOC and Black community and supporting their mental wellness. And I started it because I had a really, really heavy depressive cycle after living in LA for 5 years and like having everything that I wanted and still feeling like I was worthless. And when I looked for like resources or community online, because I couldn't afford therapy at the time, I didn't find any communities that represented what I looked like, who I wanted my friends to be. And instead of like complaining about it, I decided to just create one. And that's kind of how the story of Sad Girls Club came about. I didn't expect it to become what it is today, but I'm happy I like took the leap and actually did it.
Dewey, you're tuning in from LA. You're a creative yourself. You're a filmmaker, a photographer. Tell us about yourself and about Koreatown Run Club.
Yeah, from Virginia. I'm out in LA. Mike and I started KRC maybe, I guess, 6 years ago now. We weren't runners before. We saw that, where we lived in Koreatown, it was very much a neighborhood with late night activities, right? Bars, karaoke, Korean barbecue, what have you. Everything happened after 10. So we wanted to kind of do something different for the neighborhood we lived in, and started a run club with zero running experience, just to see how it would go. And here we are 6 years later.
Amazing. Well, let's get into it. I know our audience is looking for those tangible takeaways they can apply to their businesses. Today, we're focused in on brand. We're talking about building your brand, defining your lane, and both of you have done such an incredible job with Koreatown Run Club and Sad Girls Club. So when writing about brand design and innovation, Marty Neumeier says, quote, brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. So a gut feeling. What is the gut feeling when you think about Koreatown Run Club and Sad Girls Club? What is the gut feeling that you want people to walk away with when they come to one of your events?
I can start. I would say when someone attends a Sad Girls Club event, however you identify, male, female, anything in between, like we want you to basically understand and know that it's okay to be vulnerable. Like if your gut feeling is telling you to talk to someone, to ask someone for help or support, and you're feeling like on the fence about it, or you're feeling like no one's going to really care, after coming to one of our events, you will feel like it's okay to talk about these things. I'm not alone. There are people who, live in the same area as me, or even like across the globe, who are experiencing the same things as me. And it's okay to just talk about these things that are so heavily stigmatized and make you feel so much shame.
Yeah, Elyse, it's almost like you want people to walk away feeling like they've entered a safe space. They can be vulnerable and they can be themselves. And there's other people just like them. That's so powerful. What would you say the feeling you want folks to leave after going on one of your runs is, Dewey?
Oh, man. I feel like even before that, I think, seeing us on Instagram or whatever, it could be a little intimidating just because, you're running with a big group of strangers. You might not know who they are. So even just showing up is pretty tough. And then so translating, that the Instagram or social stuff just to showing up, and then after completing a run, I hope people feel like, hey, I did it. It was intimidating. It was tough. It was hard, but I did it. I accomplished that, and 1 mile can lead to 3 miles, can lead to half a marathon, a full marathon. And after you've done a marathon, like there's not much else out in the world. That's pretty tough. So you can do anything you want.
Yeah, I love that because it's about personal records, right? Like I can do 1 mile, I could do 3 miles, but then you're doing it in community with other people who are supportive and kind of encouraging one another. So you both are master storytellers. You mentioned Instagram, Dewey. You have a really engaged community. Same with you, Elyse, with Sad Girls Club. We talked about the why you do what you do. Let's talk about all of the creative aspects and those creative touch points. When you're developing those assets, when you're thinking about how your brand shows up on social media, everything from the look, the feel on your website, what advice would you give to folks tuning in today in terms of how you make sure your brand story is consistent through those other creative touch points? Start with you, Elyse.
I would say the main thing is, like, from the first question you asked, is go with your gut. If it feels a little bit off, then question it. And if it still feels off, then don't move forward with it. But I think that you have to really dig into the community and see what they want, what they're asking for. Every time a season changes, like, I feel like people's preferences changes and what they actually want and what they're experiencing changes as well. So we really tap into our community and like really understand and try to identify, okay, these are the big conversations that are happening on social media. This is what isn't happening, or there are so many conversations happening about this one thing. Maybe we should fall back and talk about something different. So I think it's really like understanding who your community is and like how their minds are ever changing with the seasons and keeping up with that in a way that feels authentic to you and your brand.
What would you say, Dewey? It's what you do for Koreatown Run Club and making sure that there's that consistency and how you approach all of those creative touch points.
Yeah. I think as a designer or any sort of creative, just learning and exploring and kind of having fun through creating stuff is super important, and knowing what's out there. But also, you got to be confident and, like Elyse said, confident with your gut feeling. You should have your point of view. You should know what you want to come across, and people follow your brand because of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so also just trusting yourself and designing what you kind of want to design while, keeping in mind what other people are thinking, of course, because it is a community and it's not just about you, but, just having that consistency throughout, I think is really important.
I heard consistency. I heard balance, right? It's like leading with your point of view, but at the same time, taking the pulse of your community and taking stock of what's going to resonate with your community. So it's that balance. I also heard trusting your intuition and like really knowing that, hey, this is what we stand for. This is our point of view. And if something feels off, that's probably an indicator that you shouldn't move forward with it. So let's talk about how that might translate into live experiences. We have event creators from all walks of life tuning in today. How would you say that they should approach thinking about those experiences and how they design those experiences to ensure that the brand is really communicated throughout?
I could start with that. Something that I struggle with a lot is I kind of have to be a different person in these events because I'm a pretty quiet guy, pretty introverted. But that doesn't really resonate with people coming to you like, oh, how's it going? How many miles are you running? I got to show up for that. And so just understanding that, people interacting on a screen, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever it is, it's different. There's kind of like a mutual understanding of how to communicate online. And it's different from showing up in person.
That's a really important distinction, right? Yeah, because people might already have their idea of who you are and what you're about through the screen, through the social media. So it's a matter of like how you show up in real life.
Exactly.
I think that too, because I feel like I'm just like Dewey. I'm very introverted. I studied film and production, so I never wanted to be in front of something. But at the events, people are asking you like, and speaking about really, really deep things. So I think it's understanding your like capacity to be like to host and to also lead, because obviously everyone's looking to you. You're the event creator. You're the one who's curating this space, but you don't want to overextend yourself. So know your capacity beforehand, because you can always add more, but once you go too big, it's hard to kind of retract and move backwards without feeling like all types of bad feelings. But I would say just know what your capabilities are, know how much support you have going into it, and use it as like your your tent pole of building out whatever your event is, because you can always add. I mean, you can always take away too, but like it's better to add on than to like break down and like rebuild, I feel.
Be really consistent and know what your baseline is, and you can keep adding and making it richer. Let's talk about merch, because this is a question that comes up a lot. Folks are thinking about new income streams. They're thinking about how they carry out the brand through other innovative ways. You both have carved out a really interesting merch strategy. Dewey, let's start with you. If you were to give our Reconvene attendees maybe one tip that you think they should copy and one mistake that you want them to learn from, what would it be when it comes to merchandise? And tell us a little bit about the merch that you have at Koreatown Run Club as well.
Yeah. What we have is pretty simple: tees, hats, and then we have some like accessories stuff. Basically just what we kind of want to wear and what we kind of want to make. But if I were to give a do and a don't, I would say, merch is interesting because as a creative person, you just want to create, right? You want to do things, put out what you want to put out. But when you're talking about merch, it is a business, and you don't want to have to sit on, 100 shirts that don't sell. So you really have to think about what people want. Will it sell? Will what you make sell? And maybe the things you don't want to make will sell. And then you have to give a little of your creative side and make something that just says Koreatown Run Club on it, or whatever it is. And I will say what you should definitely do is kind of, before you make anything, look at the numbers, look at, how much does it cost to produce? How much do we need to make? Is there a minimum? And sometimes, the coolest things that you want to make don't sell well. But it'd be really cool to have, so maybe you make a couple of those and you sell those, but they don't make necessarily as much money as like a simple bandana or something like that. So once you can look at all the numbers of all your different products and kind of take a step back and see how everything lays out, you can kind of have a plan that way to attack.
Does that resonate with you, Elyse? What would you add?
1000%. I would say Korea runs out. Like, you got Run Club, you guys have it. Your merch is popping. Like, I love it. For us, it was a bit difficult for us to do clothing and apparel. Like, our capacity, I was like, I want to do this. I want to do a t-shirt. I want to do a sweater. Like, we had too many SKUs. So I would say in the beginning, just understand that if you are going to create a t-shirt, you have to have a full size run. And those are a lot of SKUs to kind of hold on to. And like Dewey said, understand like what the minimum and maximum or minimum purchase order is. Because I've always wanted to do socks, but socks are like the hardest thing to create because you have to purchase like 2,000 pairs. So just understand like what the numbers are. And also we use our merch more so as like marketing. It's a small part of the business. So we use it more of like marketing, or we'll send out friends and family packages just to get our name out there and to get the brand out there. Because if you see a shirt with Sad Girls Club, someone might ask you, what does that mean? So it's not so much like an income revenue thing for us. It's more of like this is someone who can shout out our brand. And I would say a don't. I guess I would do. A don't is, you don't have to take every last person's advice on what you should create. Like, going back to the first question, go with your gut, because people are spoiled for choice. They want everything. If you ask, do you want a hoodie? Do you want a t-shirt? Do you want this? People will say yes, but will they actually buy it? You don't want to be sitting on, like Dewey said, you don't want to be sitting on 100 t-shirts. So just make sure that you're going with your gut. You're listening to the community, but you're not just being so reactive where you are kind of deterring your business from its mission.
Yeah, you talked about both of you talked about this idea of looking at the numbers, making sure that it makes sense for you, Elyse. You approach it more around marketing. And really being intentional that there's not too many SKUs in different sizes and different colorways. For you, Dewey, I know that you've in the past talked about the importance of fulfillment, right? And both of you have described this idea of, having boxes in your apartments, and there's this side that people don't realize when they purchase something off of your websites, that there's actually a human that's fulfilling all of that. Tell us a little bit about what that's like and how you approach fulfillment.
Yeah, for us, also, Elyse, I got a sock plug for you, so let's talk after. Those minimums down.
It could be on.
For fulfillment, it's really just Mike and I sharing an email and just going in whenever we can to send these orders out. One thing that I have learned is that, especially when someone's buying items from you that, don't run with you or aren't local or don't know you personally, they treat it as a real business, and it is. But with that comes customer service. If someone wants to return something or it got stolen, you might have to bite the bullet and refund them and just lose out on that order. So you have to treat it as a business 100%. And it's not just, a hand-to-hand transaction from a trunk. It's an actual business.
It's part of your brand experience as well, right?
Exactly.
I'm curious, both of you have done some amazing collaborations with big brands. I'm curious, what was a moment that you knew that you had turned a corner with Koreatown Run Club or Sad Girls Club? Not only was it like the big brand collaborations, the impact that you're making, people giving you positive feedback. Like, what was the moment that each of you found that you had turned a corner and the brand was resonating with an audience?
I would say a big moment for us was within our first year, Nike had reached out to partner with us. And we actually did a run club with Sad Girls Club, and we did it in the middle of winter. And we ran alongside the West Side Highway in like 10-degree weather, and people were coming from like Queens, Bronx to come to Manhattan. And if you don't know, that's like an hour and change train commute just to run in the dark and freezing cold weather. And I was like, oh, people are feeling this. Like, people really are resonating. And that's very, very lit. Up until like this year, we had a partnership with Crocs, and they chose 3 creatives to pick a nonprofit to donate a portion of sales for this shoe they were doing with SZA. And 2 out of the 3 creators chose Sad Girls Club out of any nonprofit in the world. They didn't know each other, but they selected SGC. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm very boring. I'm in the house all the time. So I never know what our reach is until I see things like that. And I'm like, oh, that's dope. Like, people are really, they want to funnel funding into something because they see the result is valuable. And
when you think about both those examples, what would the learning be for our folks tuning in virtually?
I would say just understand that you can be creative. Like, you can try new things out with brands and partnerships. You don't have to go with what they tell you to do, because the initial collaboration was like, let's do a t-shirt with Nike. And I'm like, no, we can do something a bit more advanced. We can do something that benefits their physical and mental wellness. So let's do something a bit more robust. So I would say challenge like any partner who's coming with you to do more, because they are investing in like your community, and you know your community better than anybody else. So just make sure that you don't become like too like excited with the brand that you're working with, where you lose the vision, because you should be guiding them alongside of you, not them like kind of steering the ship.
Yeah.
If I could add to that, I feel like a lot of times brands will come to you to almost have you do their job for them.
Right.
We need this community, and we're this giant corporation. We don't necessarily have the voice for it or the trust for it. So it is about, almost putting your foot down and telling them, this is what works. You guys came to us, and this is how we do it. If you like how we do it, this is how we would do it. And most of the times they'll for sure listen.
Yeah. Walking into that relationship, knowing that you're the expert, right? You're the expert on your community. You know what's resonated, and you're going to keep leaning into your mission. So in our last minute, I'd love to just, again, follow up on this idea of brand. When you think about your brands, what is one like big learning that you want our folks in the audience to take away?
Don't let imposter syndrome like steer you away from anything that you know in your heart is what you should be doing, because that's something that can really diminish creativity. And if you do feel that way, tap your friend, your sister, your mom to like boost you up, because it is really hard. And if you're working as a solo founder, you can become very like, isolated in your thoughts. But if you do feel imposter syndrome, tap out for a second and tap into people who are going to pour into you and like let you know that your ideas are valuable and what you're doing is definitely needed.
Yeah, I would say, just have fun with it. Always have fun. that's where most of my creativity and everything comes out of. And if you don't have fun with it, it's not gonna, in the long term, it's not gonna last. If you find yourself just having to do things for your community, having to do things, you'll burn out and you won't have your 100% effort into it.
Well, Elyse, Dewey, thank you so much. There's so many tangible takeaways here. We talked about the power of storytelling, the importance of, both of you talked about consistency and how you lean into your mission. We talked about merch, not having too many SKUs, that balance of, is this going to sell? Is it going to resonate with the community, or is it something that I actually want to do myself? Is it something that I would wear, right? I love that. Making sure that every touch point, there's a really compelling through line to your mission, and that you are really thinking about how, what's the gut feeling people are walking away with. And I think for both of your businesses, it's that feeling of having a safe space to explore, to have fun, to be creative, to see yourself amongst others, right? And be encouraged. So thank you so much, Elyse and Dewey. I know our creators in the audience have learned a ton. Let's be sure to stay connected. You can follow Elyse and Dewey. We're dropping their social media in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you.